theyeshiva.net.
Okay, we start a new Mishnah today. The second Mishnah of Masechta Megillah, Daf Hey Amud Aleph. The first Mishnah taught us that Jews in regular cities, big cities, Ayaras G'daylas, they read the Megillah on the 14th of Adar, and they don't do it earlier. They always do it on the 14th of Adar. So the expression, the first Mishnah was that Kfarim va'Ayaras G'daylas Kairin b'Yudalet. In villages and big cities, they read on Yudalet, but in villages, they sometimes can read it earlier, Yud Aleph or Yud Beis or Yud Gimel. What's the definition of Ayaras G'daylas? That's the second Mishnah. You said big cities. What's a big city? What does a big city mean? 100 Jews live there? 1,000 Jews live there? 200,000 Jews live there? So he says, Ezi Ir G'dayla. What's the definition of this Ir G'dayla? Kol sheyeshba asara batlanen. It's not about the size of the neighborhoods, the size of the city. It's about one definition. Are there 10 batlanim? What do we mean 10 batlanim? Not 10 shlemazalim, but 10 batlanim means people who are always, there will always be 10 people in shul in the morning and in the evening. Batlanim, that's an our euphemism. Batlanim means they're bottled from melacha. You remember, people at sunrise had to be at work till sunset. So can you have people to guarantee that in the morning and in the evening they'll be in shul? So it's people who are mevatel. They have the luxury, by being supported by the community, to take off, right? To work less or not to work. And they could be in shul. And they could be oisik in the tzarchei tzibur. Here you have a Sarah Batlana.
In other words, what's the ratio of the people supporting them?
So the word batlanim became, once we have this word, so it became a batlan. In other words, he doesn't work. But the original Asar Batlanim was a very, and it's 10. But these people were supported in order to be able to make sure they could sit in shul and daven and learn and deal with tzarchei tzibur. So if you have this, so that means you daled Adar, there'll be a minyan. There'll be a minyan for the Megillah. That's what he means, Ayaras G'daylas. Parshas mikan, if it's less, if you have only 9 batlanin or no, harezek kfar. Harezek kfar, it's considered a village. In other words, the chiddush is it could be physically a huge city. It could be a big city. And the citizens of the city don't have to go to another city to find a bezdin or to go for kriyas haTorah. They don't have to. They have a big city. There's people who know how to read the Torah. There's dayanim here. But if there's no 10 batlanim and there's no fixed minyan in all the tefillas, Shachris, Mincha, Ma'ariv, so they have permission to read the Megillah on earlier day, whether it's Yud Aleph or Yud Beis or Yud Gimel on a Yom HaKnisa on a Monday and Thursday, when everybody will come to Shul for Kriyas HaTorah.
Why wouldn't we fix Minyanim? Today there's no batlanim, and we have thousands of batlanim. Don't worry.
Today, Baruch Hashem. This. In other words, we learned before that the reason that the villages couldn't do Monday and Thursday is as a compensation for the fact that they feed and irrigate their brothers in all of the cities. You're not going to say that about a big city. That's true. But the main idea was that if it's not easy to have a minyan on your dalit and you have to go schlep to another town, another place, another city, it's going to disturb Simchas Purim because hours will be spent in looking for a minyan of the Megillah. That's why we didn't want the Jews of the villages to have to spend an extra many hours on Purim to go search for a minyan. So we let them do the minyan for the Megillah on Monday and Thursday when they're anyway coming to the city for a minyan. Unless Purim is on Yud Daled and that's a Monday or Thursday, right? They would come in, they'll come in for that too. This Heter, says the Gemarah, is also a big city if they don't have 10. And now they're going to have to schlep and look to get a minyan on Purim. They said, you know what? Do it a day before, do it 2 days before, do it 3 days before, and your Purim will be much more calm and celebratory and serene. It's a fascinating thing how the Chazal really wanted people to have a wonderful and elevating and inspiring and joyous Purim. So that's why we could be in a big city. There could be it's not a village to 2 Jewish farmers. I understand. You're not going to make them take their horse and buggy and go to a city. It's a big city. But since there's no Asara Batlanim, so therefore it's considered a kfar. Fascinating halach. Says the Mishnah Vayter, after we finish talking about the times of reading the Megillah, So the Mishnah says, Be'elu amru makdimin. In the times of the Megillah, the Chachamim said that you do the mitzvah, you shift the mitzvah to a day early. So if your dalit is on Shabbos, of course, you do it a day early. You do the Megillah on Thursday or so Friday. If Tesvav is on Shabbos, they do the Megillah again on Friday or Thursday. If you're in a village or in a city without Asara Batlanim, you do it on Yom HaKnissa. You're always going backwards. V'loy ma'acharin, you never do it later. You never say, oh, your dalit is Shabbos, let's read the Megillah Sunday. Tesvav is Shabbos, let's read the Megillah Sunday. You don't do that. Avol. But now let's go through other institutions in Jewish life where the system is very different. You don't go back, you go forward. And the Mishnah is now going to enumerate many different things of Jewish life. Okay. Zman Atze Kohanim, the time of the wood of the Kohanim. What is this? So briefly, fascinating piece of Jewish history. When they built up the second Beis HaMikdash, Jews were very poor. They couldn't even afford wood, lumber for the Mizbeach, which has to burn. Eish Tamid Tukin LaMizbeach. Always has to be a fire on the Mizbeach. They couldn't afford. So there were individual Jewish families who donated lumber, say for a week, for a month, for 2 months, for 2 weeks, for a few days. They donated. 9 families. This is right in the beginning of Bayesheni. As a token of appreciation and commemoration for what they did throughout the next few 100 years, on that day when they started to donate, every year they would donate the wood, even though there's a lot of lumber. It was their wood that was used on the Mizbeach that day. That day. There's 9 that goes through Masechta Tainis 9 times. Yeah. For example, Esrim Ba'av, 20 of, Chafav was one of them. Yeah, Bnei Pachas, Moyav, different families. The Mishnah goes through them, Masechta Tainis, and they would always donate eitzim, and that day became a Yom Tov for them. It became a Yom Tov for them. They would offer karbonis then. This is called Zman Atze Kohanim. Yeah. What happens if it's on Shabbos? What happens if this day falls out on Shabbos? So then, they wouldn't bring their carbon on Shabbos. You're not allowed to slaughter an animal on Shabbos. They would do it the next day. They would push it off the next day, not early the next day. Next, Tisha B'Av. If Tisha B'Av falls out on Shabbos, the 9th of Av, when do you fast? You don't fast on Friday. After Shabbos, the next day. Chagiga. What's Chagiga? Chagiga is another institution in Jewish life. During the 3 holidays, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, there was an obligation for all Jews to make Aliyah L'Regel, to come to the Beis HaMikdash, but not come empty-handed. Lo yero pnei reikim. They came with 2 types of karbonas, an oilas re'iyah, on carbon oila, which is completely burnt on the Mizbeach, but they also came with another carbon, and that is called Shalmei Chagiga. On the first day of Yom Tov, they would offer Shalmei Chagiga, which was basically the fat would be burnt on the altar, but the rest would be eaten, right, by the people, by the men, by the women, by the children, by their families, by their guests. This was the Simcha, Ein Simcha Ela B'Basar, Ein Simcha Ela B'Yayin. This was called the Shalmei Chagiga, that every Jew offered. Every Jew offered, not every single individual Jew, but Jewish people offered on Yom Tov. And what happens if the first day falls out on Shabbos? The first day of Yom Tov is on Shabbos. Let's say Sukkot, or Pesach, or Shavuos. So then they would bring the carbon the next day. And the reason is because you don't have to bring the carbon on the first day of Yom Tov. You could bring the carbon a whole Yom Tov, right? Sukkot has 8 days. You could bring it on 8 days. Pesach has 7 days in Eretz Yisrael, so you could bring it 7 days. Even Shavuos, you have another 6 days to bring it. It's called Yemei HaTashlumin of Shavuos. So therefore, since it's not a carbon that has a Zman Kavua, you don't have to do it on Shabbos. So therefore, it's not Doicha Shabbos, you do it the next day. That's Chagiga. You can't. You had 7 days. Well, the first day, if I don't bring it, I'll bring it the second day, the third day, the fourth day. But the last day, that's it. Time is up. Yeah, we'll soon see. Have a Hakel, another fascinating institution. Hakel. What's Hakel? We all know Hakel is, after 7 years, they're the 7th year with Shemitah, and then the next Sukkot after Shemitah, meaning the beginning of the 8th year, or the beginning of the first year of the next cycle, when all the Jews would gather for Sukkot, Motzai, the first day of Sukkot, yeah, Motzai, the first day of Sukkot, meaning the evening of the first night of Chol HaMoed, first day. Remember, in Eretz Yisrael, it's 1 day of Sukkot, not like by us here. There was Hakel. the mitzvah that all Jews, Hakel Asam, men, women, children, even infants, babies, were brought, and the Melech Yisro would read from the Sefer Torah, and this was, as the Rambam says in Hilchas Chagiga, a reenactment of Ma'amad Har Sinai. It was like the entire Jewish people coming back together to rededicate themselves to the Jewish historical calling and destiny. Yeah, parts of Sefer Dvarim. So therefore, what happens on Hakel? Usually you do it Motzai Yom Tov of the first day of Sukkot. What happens if Motzai Yom Tov Rishon is on Shabbos? They do it, they push it off to the next day. What would be the problem with Hakel? I understand a carbon, I understand carbonis on Shabbos, I understand fasting on Shabbos. So the problem is you're bringing infants. You're going to carry them in Rishus Harabim. In Yerushalayim itself, the old city has walls. It's not a problem, but not all Jews were there. Some Jews were coming from outside of Yerushalayim. It's going to be Shabbos, right? You're going to be bringing kids. It's a problem. Another element Rashi brings is they would build a big bima for the Melech, a big platform for the Melech. You can't build it on Shabbos. They didn't want to build it Erev Shabbos because they didn't want to stuff up the Azor. There was so many Jews. They wanted to build it right before on Shabbos, so therefore they wouldn't do it. So it was done the next day. Ma'achirin v'loy magdimin. In all these situations, you delay it. You don't push it back. Unlike the Megillah. Says the Mishnah. Even though the Chachamim said that the reading of the Megillah, you shift to an earlier day. Now you don't delay it. Mutarin behesped the betainis. Those days when you read the Megillah prematurely, Yud Aleph, Yud Beis, Yud Gimel, you're allowed to do a eulogy, and you're allowed to fast. On Purim itself, you Dalet and Tesvav, you don't do a hesped, and you're not allowed to fast, as the Gemarah will explain soon on Amid Beis. But when you're shifting the Megillah to a previous day, you take a read the Megillah then, but it doesn't transfer the entire energy and obligations of Purim, and therefore you're allowed to fast on that day. Yeah, like the fast of Esther, or somebody wants to fast on Yud Aleph for whatever reason, right? And he's reading the Megillah that day, it's fine. Yeah, or even a personal fast, Mutarim behesped the betainis or matanas lavyoinim. And when you read the Megillah those days, you could fulfill the mitzvah of matanas lavyoinim, meaning you don't have to give matanas lavyoinim on the day of Purim. You can give matanas lavyoinim on that day, right? The Suda of Purim you have to do on Purim. The Suda of Purim, you have to do on Purim itself. But Matanas Lavyoinim and the Megillah you can also do on the previous day. And the Mishnah says, Amar Rabbi Yehuda finally gives the following clause. Emasai, when is all this said that you can read the Megillah in earlier days? Only in one situation. In a region where they actually go into a nearby city or a remote city on Monday and Thursday, because there's a Bezdin that sits there on these days and they go in there. But if it's a situation where they're not going into the city on Monday or Thursday, then you can only read the Megillah in the right time, which is on the 14th of Adar. In other words, the whole point was that we tried to minimize their burden. They're going in anyway Monday and Thursday, so they don't have to go in again on Purim, which would minimize and take away from their Simchas Purim. But if they're anyway not going on Monday and Thursday, so they're anyway going to have to make a special trip for reading the Megillah. So when should that special trip be? That special trip should be on Purim. There's no benefit in giving them an earlier day because they have to schlep in one day just for the Megillah. They're not doing it anyway. They can't kill two birds with one stone. So therefore they said, if so, let them just do it on the day of Purim. Yes, it's harder for them than for other Jews because they have to schlep to a city for a minyan. That's true. But it's Purim. That's what Purim is. That's part of the Yom Tov because you're not gaining anything by putting Megillah on another day. Says the Gemarah, Tana, we learned in a Braisa, Asara Batlanim Sheba Beis HaKnesses. What do we mean by Asara Batlanim? Who are these Asara Batlanim? Like you ask, what Batlanim? It means Asara Batlanim who are not just Batlanim. Sheba Beis HaKnesses. They go to Shul. You can be a Batlin and be a couch potato. So that's not what we mean by a Batlin. We mean Batlanim, that they make sure that the Shul is filled with these 10 people in order to daven. The Rambam says in his Pirush HaMishnayos that these Asara Batlan, and they were dedicated to learn and l'tzarchei tzibur, to the needs of the community, and that's why they were stationed in the shul, because that was like the JCC, the Jewish Community Center of the Jewish people. I started to mention who these 10 people are. I see he brings the Meiri, and the Chidush Haran says, why 10? 3 judges, 3 dayanim. You see what type of batlanim they are. The shliach of Bezdin, the one who's their emissary to accomplish what has to be accomplished. 2 gabayei tzedakah, 2 people who collect tzedakah. You never have one because it's financial issues. You want full transparency, so you have 2 gabayei tzedakah, and a 3rd one to distribute the tzedakah. So you have 3 dayanim, you have a shliach bezdin, it's 4. You have 3 people involved with tzedakah, so it's 5, 6, 7. You have a sofer, a scribe is 8. You have a chazan, a cantor, a bal tefillah, 9. And of course you have the most important perhaps, a malamid tinoikis, the teacher of the children. These are the asara batlanis. You understand what type of batlanim they are? Teacher is the hardest job in the world. A teacher is the hardest job in the world. Yeah. That's what the Meiri writes. That makes a city. It doesn't mean he sits in shul all day. It means he can allocate his time in a way that he'll be there for Shachris, he'll be there for Ma'ariv. That's what it means. A Gabbai Tzedakah, of course, can't sit in shul all day. And the Malamet Tinoikis may also have to go out, whatever, everybody, and then etc. But the point is, they have the freedom to be able to make sure that that Jewish life is happening on a daily basis. Again, it's hard for us to understand because when you have an internet business and there's a guy who sits here upstairs and he's in real estate and he sits in shul a whole day and he runs his business, it's hard for us to understand what this means, right? Even 40 years ago, even 30 years ago, before internet, when people actually went to work, there was a concept, you left your house and you went to work, etc. You didn't sit on the couch and run half your businesses, but still, it's different type of work, after the Industrial Revolution, especially in the modern age. Amal, work was work. Yeah, you worked in the fields. There's no chachmas, no monkey business. Yeah.
I just want to clarify what it means. It has to have 2 gabayei tzedakah.
2 gabayei tzedakah, yeah.
Because
Collecting.
it's not a requirement that you must have 2 gabayei tzedakah in general. It only refers to in the olden days when there was only one kehillah, one shul, and they taxed people.
Yeah.
And then to distribute the taxes towards tzedakah.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong in an individual having a tzedakah fund on his own, and he doesn't have to have other people involved.
Yeah. Like you. You have, no? Yeah. Zog the Mishnah, zog the Gemarah, be'elu amrim magdimin v'loy ma'achirin. And all by Megillah you say you go before, you shift it to an earlier day, not later. My time, what's the reason, Taka? What's the reason that Megillah you don't do later? Amar Rabbi, Amar Shmuel, Rabbi said in the name of Shmuel, Amar Kra, the Pasuk says in the Megillah. Let's read the whole Pasuk, capital test of the Megillah, Pasuk Chav Zayin. Kimu v'kiblu Yehudim aleihem v'alzarim v'alkol anilhum aleihem v'lo yavar liyas oisim eshnei ayamim ha'elek ichsavim v'chizmanam. The Jewish people accepted on themselves, on their children, and all who accompany them. V'lo yavar, it shall not pass to celebrate these 2 days. The Lo Yavar teaches me, do not be over, do not pass these 2 days, Yadalad and Tesvav, without doing Purim, and therefore, we don't delay it, we always shift it to an earlier day. That's what Shmuel explained. I have to be mine. You're asking why not on the Suda? Why the Suda? The Suda... Right, so the Gemarah Taka doesn't mention this, that you do the Suda later. The Gemarah says you always do the Suda on your Dalit. We spoke about Purim Meshulish in Yerushalayim. I have to be ma'ayin. Something else Shmuel said. Rabbi also said in the name of Shmuel. Minayin, I'm going to read it and then I'll explain. And this, don't shut down now because it's a little complicated, but you'll understand Be'ezer Hashem. Minayin shein moinin yamim l'shanim. How do we know we never will add days to a year? Meaning, we will not have individual days in a year if they're not part of a month. Shenemar, the pasuk says in Boy, Parshas Shmos, HaChodesh, Hashem tells Moshe the first commandment right before the Exodus, right? The Parsha right before the season. HaChodesh hazel lechem rosh chadashim, rishon hu lachem lechadshei hashana. This month, which was Nisan, the first month, is the first of the months of the year. What do we learn from here? Chadashim atamayna l'shanim. A year can only be made up by months. V'i atamayna yamim l'shanim. You cannot add isolated days outside of a month to a year. This is what Rabbi Abba taught in the name of Shmuel. V'Rabbanan the Kisrim, which Rabbi Abba Amru. The Rabbanan of the city of Caesarea, Caesari, in the name of Rabbi Abba taught. How do you know that you cannot count isolated hours as an extension of a month? Only full days. Shenemar, the pasuk says in Bamidu Perikir Aleph, Ba'aloischa ad chodesh yamim. They ate the meat, the famous meat, the slav, until a chodesh yamim, a chodesh of days. Yamim atam mechashav l'chadashim, yatam mechashav shayis l'chadashim. A chodesh must be made up of yamim, not of shayis. Okay, excellent question. What is the Gemarah teaching us here? The Gemarah is saying as follows. Our calendar, it's not complicated, you just have to tune in and you'll understand it. Our calendar, the Jewish calendar, is made up of two separate systems called the solar system and the lunar system. The solar, the sun cycle, and the moon cycle. What do we mean? The moon finishes its orbit. The moon revolves around the earth every single month, and it starts over again. That's what makes a month. What makes a month, why do we call it chodesh? Chodesh comes from the word chadash, because every single month, the moon begins a new orbit. How long does it take the moon literally to go around the earth every month? And the answer is 29 and a half days. It's not a whole number. It's 29 days plus 12 hours plus 44 minutes and change. Okay? So it's again 29 days, 12 hours and 44 minutes. And a little more, a little change of that too. 1/18. That's the full cycle. When the Levana finishes that, that's called the Moilad. Moilad means rebirth. It's reborn again, so to speak, meaning it will begin its cycle again. We all know at that moment of the Moilad, you cannot see the Levana because of its unique position, right? Stationed in between the sun and the earth, and therefore the bright part of the moon is completely facing the sun. It's away from the earth. We don't see it. When the moon continues moving, right, after Rosh Chodesh, you'll start seeing the little, what is it called? The little sliver, the little crescent of the moon, the crescent, and as it moves away, you'll see more and more until the 15th, when it's managed, the position is that the half that's bright is facing the earth. So then you see it's Kaimis, the Levana is complete, Kaimis Bashlemusa. Well, it's always complete. The question is how much we see, and then it goes back. That's basically the cycle of the moon, which is called Chodesh. That's what we call a month. Okay, next. Now let's talk about the sun. What about the sun? The sun's orbit around the earth, and I'm not now discussing earth revolving around the sun revolving around the earth, a completely separate subject. When we experience and we watch the sun, and the sun orbits around the earth, that orbit, I'm not talking about the daily orbit of 24 hours. We're not talking about that. That's a 24-hour orbit. We're talking about an orbit that is completed only after a year. It takes a full year for the sun to orbit around the earth from our perspective, okay? And that is 365 days. But it's also not 365 days exact. And that includes, of course, all the seasons and the summer and the winter and the autumn and the spring and so forth. What is that? That's called a Shnas HaChama, and that is 365 days and a quarter of a day. Quarter of a day would be 6 hours. 365 days and 6 hours. It's called the year of the sun. Now, from the sun's perspective, there's no such a thing as a month. Nothing happens after 30 days. After 365 days, a lot happens. I start again. But after 30 days, there's no break. From the moon's perspective, there's no such a thing as a year. The moon doesn't know about a year. Nothing happens after a year. Something happens after 29 and a half days. Yeah, I start over. But nothing happens after a year. The Even Ezra has an expression in Parshas Boy, Ein l'chama chadashim ve'ein l'levana shanim. The moon got no years, and the sun got no months. Okay, it's a wonderful perspective. Okay. That is basically the two systems. Now, what does this mean? The year of the sun if I compare it to the 12 months of the moon, it basically almost matches up. In other words, how much is the sun relative to the year of the sun would match up to 12 months of the moon. However, another 11 days. Another 11 days. Why? If you do 29 and a half times 12, remember, the moon orbits 29 and a half days. Take 29 and a half days, multiply it by 12. What do you have? 354. 354 is almost a full cycle of the sun, but not a full cycle. You need another 11 days, 354 till 365. So it's going to take another 11 days for the sun to complete its solar orbit, its annual orbit, which makes a year. Now, the Roman calendar, for example, or today American calendar, is based on the sun. The Muslim calendar is based on the moon, which is fairly simple. The Jewish calendar is based on synchronization, which makes it complicated. Why? The Torah says, in other words, he speaks about a chodesh, a month. A month has nothing to do with the sun, has to do with the moon. So our months are based on the moon. That's why we celebrate Rosh Chodesh, based on the moon. The moon finishes, we start a new month, a new month, a new month. Great! So what's the problem? After 12 months, you have a year, 354 days. But there's another problem. Not another problem, there's another mitzvah. And the mitzvah is Shomer es Chodesh HaAviv, which means Nisan has to always be in the spring. Lahavdil, take Ramadan. Ramadan, right? Sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's cold. Because it has nothing to do with the seasons. The moon, the seasons have to do with the sun. And their calendar has to do with the moon. So we have two issues. On one hand, we're supposed to follow the months and make our Yomim Tovim based on the months. Pesach is Tesvav Nisan. Sukkot is Tesvav Tishrei. Right? Yom Kippur is Yud Tishrei. That's all based on the months. On the other hand, we need that the months should follow a particular time of the season. Our months follow the moon, and our years follow the sun. Now, what's really the right way to do this? The right way to do this is very simple. We're supposed to say this. After 12 months of the moon and 11 days, I have a year. That's the right way to do it. Our calendar should be 12 months and 11 days. That's the way to do it. You understand? 12 months, 354. Add 11 days, 365. That's the end of the year. Now start a new year. You're good. That's the right way to do it. Which means, when does the year start? When does the year start? The year starts after another 11 days. So Shmuel says, sorry. There's no such a thing as making up a year from isolated days. Why? Because it says, fascinating. Those two words, L'chodshei Hashana, means Chodoshim make up a year, not days. Sorry. If you have extra days, get rid of them. They can't be the year. It's not going to work. A year has to be made up of months, which means a full month, 29, we'll soon see with the months, 29, 30-ish days, because we'll soon get to the months. But that's what you need. Therefore, what's our year? 12 months of the moon. We don't have the luxury, al pi Torah, to add 11 days. But now we're stuck, because our years are running short, right? Because that's why, Stama, you could do an interesting experiment. Let's say you were born. You were born on a, let's say you were born. I assume you were born. Huh?
First or second order. Sometimes the guy is born later.
Right. That, yeah. But you'll see that you're let's say you were born Rosh Chodesh Sivan, just as an example, right? Rosh Chodesh Aleph Sivan. Okay? So your birthday next year is going to be Aleph Sivan, right? Of course, it's going to be Aleph Sivan. In terms of your secular birthday, let's say it was June 1, right? June 1 next year is going to be 11 days later. You understand why? Because to get from Aleph Sivan to Aleph Sivan is 354 days, because it's just 12 months of a moon. But to get from June 1 till June 1, it's 365 days. So June 1 is going to be your Aleph Sivan. You understand?
11 days early.
No. It's going to take you another 11 days to get there. Their 12 months are not based on the moon. In other words, America's 12 months are fake. And Muslims' years are fake. You understand? We don't really have a month. We take 365 days in America, the Roman calendar, and we split it into 12. It's artificial. The Muslims don't have years. They take 12 months and they turn it into a year. So therefore, American months are based on the solar system. So it's going to be 365 days to get to the next June 1. You could try it out. See how your birthday works. It's going to be a bigger discrepancy and a bigger discrepancy and a bigger discrepancy. Parshas. So because of this, once every 2 or 3 years, 7 times within 19 years, we have to add a month to the year. We call a Ibur year. We add a 13th month, Adar Sheni, and as a result of that, we catch up. So it gets synchronized. Because 1 year, it's a discrepancy of 11, 2 years, a discrepancy of 22, and 3 years, a discrepancy of 33. Once 2 or 3 years, you add a second month, extra month, and Ibur year, you're good. Okay? That's halacha number 1. What's halacha number 2? What's the second statement? Second statement is we have a problem with the month too. The month finishes after 29 and a half days. So how should we do our month? Our month should end after 29 and a half days. You should say, okay, it's Rosh Chodesh. No. Chodesh Yamim. Meaning, a month must be made up of days, not of hours. I can't say 29 and a half days ends a month, and now the new month includes a half a day. Sorry. Months can only be made up of Yamim, Chodesh Yamim. Yamim make up a Chodesh, not Shois. Therefore, what do? 1 month, 29 days. Meaning Rosh Chodesh is a little too early, really. Because after 29 days, the moon didn't finish its orbit. It still has to wait 12 hours and 44 minutes. But we don't have a choice. And 1 month, we do 30 days, which means Rosh Chodesh is starting late. Because really, the moon already started its orbit 12 hours ago. But that's how we do it. But between 29 and 30, we match it up. 6 months 29, 6 months 30. And that way, the 29 and a half days gets evened out because of this discrepancy of the different months. However, since it's not 29 and a half exact, it's 29 and a half and 44 minutes. And after many years, that's going to add up to a full day. You understand? And if you just leave it go, your Rosh Chodesh is not going to be recognizable and not connected to the moon. Therefore, we have something else. And that is that there are 2 months that are sometimes both full or both chaser or chaser amal. That's Cheshvan and Kislev. Cheshvan and Kislev can be 30 days. If it's 30 days, it's because the extra 44 minutes. We got to get those extra 44 minutes. So we're going to take Cheshvan and add another day to the month of Cheshvan. You understand? So we don't have too much of a discrepancy. That's when the year is going to be 355 days, the lunar year, because we added 1 day. And that's the gematria of Shana. Shin Nun Hey, by the way, is 355. Right? That's the regular year. Sometimes you're going to take away from Cheshvan and Kislev. Yeah, you're going to have 353. So you can have 353, 354, 355. 354 is if Cheshvan and Kislev, one is Malay, one is Chaser. 355 is if both are Malay. And 353 is if both are Chaser. That's the second halacha. One halacha from Shmuel and one halacha from the Rabbanan, the Kisri in the name of Rabbi. There's different elements. I saw there's a sefer called the Mei HaShiloyach. You ever heard of the Mei HaShiloyach? From the Ishbitzer Rebbe. So he says, how does this Gemarah come in here? At first glance, because it's Shmuel, right? Shmuel said Lo Yaver, so once it's Shmuel. But really, Shmuel said a lot of things. The Gemarah could start bringing in here everything that Shmuel said. There has to be some thematic connection. So usually it's not an issue that people discuss. It's like, okay, that's how the Gemarah works. But I saw the Mei HaShiloyach says, he says as follows. Shmuel was the great astronomer. Nehirin li shvili the Rakia Keshvili de Naharda. Shmuel was also a physician in the city called Naharda in Iraq, present-day Iraq, and he said that the pathways of heaven are as clear to me as the alleyways of Naharda. He was a great astronomer. But the Me'ah Shilayach says that on Purim, Amalek was blotted out. Haman and his family were decimated, and this continued for the whole year because the Gemarah happened Yud Gimel Nisan, and a whole year the Jews prepared for war, and Achashverosh protected them. And then it went till Yud Gimel Adar when they actually defeated their enemies. So it was a whole year, and of course it lasted afterwards as well. You know, Mordechai and Esther were elevated and so forth. So he says, so that it lasted all these 12 months. But there's 11 days that the sun's year is longer than the moon's year. And he says over there, Amalek retains his kayach because the Gemarah says in Sukkah, I think there's a mistake, the Gemarah says in Sukkah that Umas ha'olam moinen l'chama and Bnei Yisrael moinen l'levana, right? Our months are based on the moon, and theirs is based, they're all completely based on the sun. Chama and Levana. The sun has an extra 11 days. So Amalek says, okay, you were following the Chadashim. In the world of the Chadashim, you wiped me out, but there's still those extra 11 days that I am superior to you. So Shmuel says, no. Those 11 days are not counted separate. They're nichlal and they're bottle. The moment the blotting of Amalek extended over the year, so these 11 days are already subsumed in the year, because the year will not be counted with extra isolated days. The year has to be by months, l'chadshei hashana, and therefore, once it went through all the chadashim, these Yud Aleph Yaim are bottled in that. The problem of 11 days we'll deal with an Iber Yard. We're going to add another month, but we're not adding these days to the year, and therefore he says that's how it comes into this Gemarah. I just want to add one thing, which Rashi says something very fascinating. And Rashi says this is also Negeya lahalacha. It's not just about the calendar. It's also Negeya lahalacha. For example, somebody makes a neder. You know what? Let's see the Rashi inside. It's fascinating Rashi. The Rashi is the second Rashi in the Gemara. Minayin she'ein moinin yamim l'shanim. Okay? Going to Amar, a person says, Koinam, I make a vow, yayin shani toyim l'shana. The person makes a vow, that I'm not going to drink wine for a year. He's going into Alcoholic Anonymous, or not Anonymous, for a year. You know when he does this? He does this on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Moine Yud Beis Chodesh Miyayim L'Yayim. V'im Nader Be'echad B'Nisan, Asur Ad Echad B'Nisan Abba, Afal Pi Shadayin Yesh Yin Aleph Yayim, She'yemois HaChami Yisayna Yemois HaLevana, Oipam Rishon Oisin Chadashim Chaserim. If I say Rosh Chodesh Nisan, I'm not drinking wine, Rabbi Yisai, for a whole year. Okay? A whole year. So I should have to wait 365 days. No. The next Rosh Chodesh Nisan, you could already drink wine. It's only 354 days. That's fine. That's our year. We're going to cut off from the year 11 days because we have to have full months to make up a year. We cannot make years of isolated days. I am missing 11 days. So this is a benefit for the person that Rosh Chodesh Nisan, he can already start saying L'chaim. Sometimes the year will be less than 354 days. Like I said, sometimes you'll have a year of what? Of 353 days, when Cheshvan and Kislev are both 29 days. On the other hand, if it was a leap year, he won't be able to drink wine for 13 months, even though it's much more than 365 days. It's not fair. I want to already say L'chaim in the middle of Adar. No, you said a year. And a year is going to be a full month. That's a fascinating example. Now let's see the next example that Rashi gives in the other way. You see the Rashi, Shoyas L'chadashim, a fascinating example. You're going, Ha'omer Ze Gitech. A person tells his wife, he gives a divorce to his wife, and he says, this is your divorce. Im loy basi mikan at chodesh zeh. If I don't return till the end of this month, this is your divorce. Okay? What would you say? How long is that? 29 and a half days, right? He says, if I don't come back to this city, this is a get. If I come back, it's not a get. So Rashi, v'hoya chodesh chaser. It was a month of 29 days. Uba mishechasheicha l'yom chavtes. He comes the night after 29, right? It's not yet 29 and a half days. You get it? If you would follow astronomy, they wouldn't be divorced. Because when did he come back? He came back in the middle of the month. He said, if I don't come back till the end of the month, it's a good get. I came back before the end of the month. You know when I came back? 29 days passed, and I came back an hour later. The moon didn't finish its orbit. The moon didn't finish its orbit. It's still the middle of the month. No. This is a good get. Why? Because we don't add hours to months. A month is either 29 or 30. It's a full day. 29 days finished. It's sunset. It's Seisek Echavim. The month is over. You did not come back. You came back the night after the month. You already came back the night of Aleph. You came back the night of Aleph, the night of the next month. It's a good get. Okay? That's where it comes out in a very practical way that the halacha defines this. And where do we learn this from? Two psukim. Chachei Hashana and Chodesh Yamim. A Shana is made up of Chachim and a Chodesh is made up of Yamim. There's no such a thing days for a year and there's no such a thing hours for a month. Days for a month and months for a year. They have to work together. The months make up the year, which means the moon makes up the year, right? And the days, which by the way is based on the sun, makes up the month, which is another way where they synchronize. You understood what I just said? Okay. Zog the Gemarah. It's verstanden, Rabbi Moses. Minutes and hours, we calculate. I told you, Cheshvan and Kislev alternate because of the 44 minutes. Because this extra, they add up. So sometimes we need another month. Oh, you want to know why Kislev is sometimes missing? Why you do both months chaser? That's in order to make sure that Rosh Hashanah doesn't fall out Lo Yadu Rosh on Sunday or Wednesday or Friday. So that's why there's a year that has 353 years. 353 days. It's called a Shana Chasera. Shana Chasera, Shana Beinanis, and Shana Malaya. Shana Malaya is Shin Nun Hey. It's always a very good, easy to remember. 355. Shin Nun Hey. That's a simon.
Every how long do we add the month?
Every two... Ibur is 7 times in 19 years. By the way, after 19 years, your Hebrew and secular birthday will always be the same day. After 19 years. Once in 19 years. You know why, right? Because it's perfect synchronization. Only once in 19 years. Every other year it's going to be off. 11 days, 22 days, right? Or whatever it is. The Ibr Yar will make it smaller, will make it bigger. If there's no Ibr Yar, it'll be bigger. If there's an Ibr Yar, will make it smaller. But when does it become mamish the same? Once in 19 years. Every few years. I don't remember the exact. Because it says in Parshas Ba'aloischa, Ad, they were eating. He says it's going to come out of their noses, the slav. They're going to eat Ad Chodesh Yamim. Because it Ad Chodesh for a month. We know what a Chodesh is. What's Chodesh Yamim? So it's you see how the Chazal, people don't realize, they had a bird's eye view of the whole Tanakh constantly, every word of Tanakh, and every nuance. Ad Chodesh Yamim. Okay, from here they make a whole halacha, and it's a serious halacha. Because if the get is a get, she goes and remarries, the kids are not mamzerim. What do you mean? He came in the middle of the month? No, sorry. He didn't come middle of the month. The month is made up of days, not of hours. He came after 29 days. It's done. It's a new month. Because Yamim, because I said Ad Chodesh. What's Chodesh Yamim? To teach a halacha. The same is with other halacha. Chodesh Hazelachem Rosh Chodashim Rishon Ulachem. Right? L'Chodshei Hashana. Rishon Ulachem. L'Chodashim. Rishon Ulachem. You already said Rosh Chodashim. The answer is, it teaches me a year is made up of months, never of days. We don't do years that are fragmented. Only months. Yeah, of course.
We asked why it's so.
Yeah, of course. MS. Says the Gemarah. Avosman atzei and v'tisha b'av v'chagiga v'hakel ma'achim v'loy magdimin. The time of Atzei, all the other things, you go later, not earlier. Why? He says, Tisha B'av, Akdume Piranius Loi Makdemi. Tisha B'Av, we're not going to shift the day of Tisha B'Av to an earlier day to bring on something negative earlier. That we don't do. If you can't do Tisha B'Av on Shabbos, you delay it. You don't bring it in earlier. Agdume Puranius. You don't try to bring Puranius. Puranius is harshness. What is it? Harshness? Puranius. Yeah, could be. So you don't bring on calamity earlier. Chagiga, so therefore you do it later. Megillah, I can't do later, lo yavar, but I'm happy to do it earlier. Simcha, you could bring on earlier. Calamity, you don't want to bring on earlier. Chagiga v'hakel, shum dakat le'mot zman chiyuvayu. What about Chagiga and Hakel? You can't do before Yom Tif. It's not yet the Zman of Chiyuv. If you would do it too early, you would not be able to fulfill your obligation. I can't bring the carbon Chagiga before Yom Tif. It's not the time of the Chiyuv. The same is true with Hakel. The time of Hakel is Sukkot. I can't do it before Sukkot. I have to do it the next day, which is also B'toy Chachag. I have to do it the next day. So that's why these two you can't do on that time. You can't do it before Sukkot. You're not going to say we do it Erev Sukkot. It's not yet the mitzvah of Hakel. The mitzvah of Hakel is at the end of the first day of Sukkot. If that's Shabbos, I'll do it the next day, but I can't do it the day earlier. So if Motzei Yom Tov Rishon of Sukkot was on Shabbos, when did you do it? You did the Hakel on the next day. Why didn't you do it the day before? The answer is it's not yet the Zman. It's not yet the Zman of Hakel. Asks the Gemarah, says the Gemarah, Tana, we learned a Braisa. Chagiga v'chol zman chagiga ma'acharin. Chagiga, and the entire time of Chagiga, you delay. Says, what does this mean? Bishleim chagiga, you know what it means, Chagiga. The mikla b'shapsa, if Yom Tov falls out on Shabbos, the first day, ma'acharin leila basar shapsa. You bring the Chagiga till after Shabbos. You don't bring it on Shabbos. El zman chagiga mahi. What's zman chagiga? Chagiga v'chol zman chagiga. Amar Rabbi says, I'll explain to you what it means. Hachi kamar. Chagiga b'Shabbos. The chagiga that the time is Shabbos, because the first day is Shabbos. V'oilas re'iyah afilu b'Yom Tov. And oilas re'iyah, the carbon re'iyah, the carbon that you brought the oila when you came for Yom Tov. Even on Yom Tov, in another day of the week, not Shabbos, there's man chagiga, which is actually the time of chagiga, because you could bring the chagiga during the other days of Yom Tov if it's not Shabbos. Ma'acharin. You delay it. Meaning, even though on the first day of Yom Tov, which is Shabbos, you don't bring a Shalmi Chagiga. But on another day, let's say the first day of Sukkot is Sunday, or Monday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you do bring the Shalmi Chagiga. Still, you don't bring Oylas Re'iyah. You always do it on Chalamayat. So that's what he says. Chagiga, the Chagiga, right? V'chol Zman Chagiga. And the Oylas Re'iyah even on Yom Tif, in another day of the week, which is the Zman of Chagiga, because Chagiga you could do, but still the Oylas Re'iyah you never do on Yom Tif, only on Chalamayat. Yeah. So this is a fascinating halacha. There's two karbonis you bring on Yom Tif, right? Oylas Re'iyah, which is an oyla, completely burnt on the Mizbech, you don't eat it. And Shalmi Chagiga, which you're going to eat with your family. So the Chagiga, I can't bring on Shabbos. But I could bring it on Yom Tov. The first day of Sukkot is on Sunday. You could bring it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Why? Because it's a carbon shlomim. And who eats the meat? The meat eats the Jew. And on Yom Tov, you're allowed to slaughter an animal. You're allowed to cook food if it's for Oichel Nefesh. But Oylas Re'iyah is for the Rebbeinu Shalaylam. So it's not Doiche Yom Tov. I'm not allowed to do it on Yom Tov. Do it Chalamayat. Chalamayat, you're allowed to cook. You're allowed to slaughter. So Oylas Re'iyah, you're not allowed to. That's Pshat. That Zman Chagiga you delay after Shabbos, right? V'chol Zman Chagiga. But there's another carbon, that the Zman of that carbon is in the Zman Chagiga. What do we mean it's in the Zman Chagiga? It's the time when you could do the Chagiga, because it's Yom Tov, not Shabbos, and still you delay it. Money. Who believes this? Which Braisa? Who's the author of this Braisa? Who does it follow? Beis Shammai. The Tanan, Beis Shammai Oimrim Mevi'in Shlomim B'Yom Tov Ein Samchin Aleihen, Aval Loi Oilas. Or Beis Hillel Oimrim Mevi'in Shlomim V'Oilas V'Samchin Aleihen. Beis Shammai holds you're allowed to bring a carbon Shlomim on Yom Tov, but you're not allowed to do smicha on Yom Tov. Every carbon behema that an individual brought, besides 3, a b'chor, a meiser, a pesach, but every carbon behema you had to do smicha. You had to place your hands on the head of the carbon and lean on it with all your strength. On Shabbos and Yom Tov, you're not allowed to do smicha because you're not allowed to move an animal, right? An animal is muktzah on Shabbos and Yom Tov. So Beis Shammai says, even when you bring the carbon shlomim on Yom Tov, you're not allowed to do smicha. Smicha is a mitzvah min ha-Torah, but Beis Shammai says you could do smicha erev Yom Tov. You don't have to do it right before the shechita. That's what he holds. So therefore, do smicha erev Yom Tov. Avaloi oilus. And oilus, he says, you bechalal can't bring on Yom Tov. You can only do malacha connected to food for yourself, not even for Hashem. You see here, according to Beis Shammai, a powerful idea that Yom Tov gets overridden to cook food for a Jew. But if it's a carbon only for Hashem, it's not daicha Yom Tov. You got to do it chalamayit. Beis Hillel says you could bring shlamim, you could bring oilus. He says that when it says that it excludes animals, it excludes Gentiles, it doesn't exclude Hashem, and therefore you could bring shlamim, oilus, soimchin alein. You can also do smicha on Yom Tov. He holds that the smicha has to be right before the shchita, and therefore the isser of the rabbanon to lean on animals gets pushed away because of the chiyuv of smicha min ha-Torah on your carbon oila and on your carbon shlamim. Obviously, the brisa that says that you have to delay the oila to chalamayit follows Beis Shammai. This is the pshat chagiga, v'chol zman chagiga ma'acharin. It gets delayed. It gets delayed. Chagiga gets delayed, and zman chagiga also gets delayed. Even in a time when you could bring the chagiga, you still cannot bring the oilas re'iyah. You have to wait till chalamayit. Rava says, the pshat in the brayse is a little different. Chagiga, the chagiga, and the oila, kol zman chagiga ma'acharin. You're allowed to delay it throughout the entire Yom Tov, all the days until the last day of Yom Tov. You can delay it. The Tanan, we learned a Mishnah, Chagiga, Baftes, Mishal Chag B'Yom Tov Rishon Shel Chag. If somebody didn't bring a Chagiga on the first day of Yom Tov, Chagig v'Hoilach Kol Regel Kula v'Yom Tov Achron Shel Chag. You can bring it the whole Yom Tov, including Shmini Atzeres. Over a Regel v'Loi Chag. But if the whole Yom Tov passes and you didn't bring it, Ein Chayev B'Achar Yusay, you don't have to bring another one. In other words, it's over, the time is over, you don't have to bring another carbon, this carbon is over. That's pshat, chagiga, v'chol zman chagiga ma'acherin, that what? Rashi takes out the vav, that chagiga, kol zman chagiga ma'acherin. The chagiga, you could do it a whole Yom Tov, you could do it a whole zman chagiga, till Shmini Atzeres, you're good. Or Pesach, all the 7 days. That's what it means, ma'acherin. Rabbi, in other words, kol chagiga, the carbon chagiga, kol zman chagiga, as long as it's Yom Tov, you're good. Until Shmini Atzeres, including Shmini Atzeres. Afterwards, the time is up and there's no reason to bring one in compensation because the obligation you will not fulfill. Rashi gives a third interpretation. Chagiga, v'chol zman chagiga ma'acherin, or some take out again the vav. Chagiga kol zman chagiga ma'acherin means that what? Whenever there's a chiyuv to bring a chagiga, you have to delay it if it's Shabbos. Afilu atzeres dechad yoima. Even Shavuos is only 1 day, and it's Shabbos. Ma'acharin, bring it after Shabbos. And you have Yemei Tashlumin, you have another 6 days to bring it. That's the Yemei Tashlumin of Shavuos, that's why we don't say Tachron, right? You have Vav, Zayin, Ches, Tes, Yud, Yud, Aleph, Yud, Beis. So Vav, Zayin, Ches, Tes, Yud, Vav, Zayin, Ches, Tes, Yud, Yud, Aleph, Yud, Beis. Tashlumin, Kol, Shiva, till Yud, Beis, including Yud, Beis. That's Pshat. Chagiga, Kol Zman Chagiga Ma'acherin. Meaning, whenever there's a Zman of Chagiga, Kol Zman, not just Sukkot and Pesach with the Yom Tov for 7, 8 days. Anytime there's a Chagiga, even Shavuos. That's why he says Kol Zman Chagiga. Even Shavuos, which is only 1 day, you still push it off if it's Shabbos. The Tanan, we learned in a Mishnah in Chagiga, Moedim, Beis Hillel is Moedim, Shem Chol Atzeres Liyas B'Shabbos, Yom Tvoyach Achar HaShabbos. If Shavuos falls out on Shabbos, Yom Tvoyach, the day of slaughtering, when you bring the Oilas Re'iyah and Shalmei Chagiga, is going to be after Shabbos. The Mishnah discusses their case where Shavuos is Erev Shabbos. If Shavuos is Erev Shabbos, right, the first day of Shavuos, 1 day of Shavuos in Eretz Yisrael is Erev Shabbos, so Beis Shammai says Yom Tvoyach is Sunday. Beis Hillel says no, Yom Tovach is not Sunday. Meaning, Beis Shammai says that you can't bring Oilus Re'iyah on Yom Tov. So Friday you can't do it, right? You can only bring Shalmei Simcha. Shabbos you can't do it. So when do you do it? You do it on Sunday. You can't bring it Erev Shabbos. You can't bring it Shabbos. So you do it on Sunday. That's Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel says, no, you could do it on Friday. You could do everything on Friday, the Oila and the Shlomim. But Moedim Beis Hillel is Moedim, that if Shavuos is not Friday, Shavuos is Shabbos, then also Beis Hillel says that what? You do everything after Shabbos. Because even Beis Hillel is Moedim that you don't do it on Shabbos, because Shabbos you can't do Eichel Nefesh. And it's a carbon that doesn't have a Zman Kavua, because you could still do it Sunday. So it's not Doicha Shabbos. It's not like if you don't do it today, the carbon is over. So even Beis Hillel will be Moedim that what? There's Tashlumin for Shavuos. You could do it on Sunday. So it's not Doicha Shabbos, even according to Beis Hillel. That's the Pshat, according to Rabashi, that any time there's a Chagiga, even Shavuos, it's on Shabbos Ma'acharin. That's how we explain the Braisa, Chagiga v'chol zman, Chagiga me'acharin. Okay, Be'ezer Hashem, tomorrow there'll be a shir, and we will continue. Ze steht in Chassidus, it's a Machzedek gesagt, that women are potter for mitzvahs esei shazman grama because they are zman. They are time incarnate. In other words, we have to synchronize our lives with time. So we say, Krishma, Shofar, Sfiras Ha'omer, Ma'ariv. We're synchronizing with time. They are the Zman. They represent the Zman itself, the flux. Huh?
They don't need it.
Yeah. They don't need the mitzvah to sanctify the Zman. Their souls are in tune with the Zman.
Women in the older times used to, their cycle used to be much more in tune with the month, actual month. There would be a whole house of women. At the same time, according to the month, they would have a cycle.
No, you see clearly that men are such a simpler in many ways. But women have a certain intensity of emotions and depth. A lot of very spiritual, very sensitive, a lot of emotional experiences that men don't always relate to.
Intuition.
It's just the way it is. Intuition also. Sensitivity, picking up things. Experiencing life in a much more powerful and intense way. And for some men it becomes difficult to deal with. It's not simple. It's just different ways of reality. Like the sun, in a way, he does his thing. He comes on. The moon goes through a tremendous amount as far as we experience the moon. Yeah, the Chodesh HaIbur means you have to work, you have to synchronize them. Okay, Birchas Hachama. That's a whole separate English.
It's going to do with 19 years.
No, that's 28 years.
Because it comes in the exact spot. That's not because it has a cycle.
That's a 1 in 28 year thing. That's a whole.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.